A decrepit pier juts out into the sea. A ramshackle wooden gangplank leads from the pier to the docked boat. A worn wooden vessel has been dry docked on a jetty. The boat is in sad shape. A hole in the hull and the condition of its boards make it obvious that the vessel is no longer seaworthy. A good-sized hole in the boat's hull indicates that it's not fit for the sea. Alexander wonders if the hole was the reason the boat was dry docked, or if the tear was caused by the dry docking. An old canvas bag full of sand hangs off the side of the boat. It was most likely used as a bumper when docking the boat against the pier, but it's rather pointless now. A long, loose rope from the sails drags in the sea. It's partially rotted from long neglect. The battered old sail doesn't look like it's ever going to catch its second wind. Rising from the deck of the ferry, the sturdy wooden mast almost pierces the sky. A small hatch leads down into the dark cargo area. A wooden door leads to the interior of the boat's cabin. A deserted beach lies behind the ferry. Alexander can see the peaks of another island on the horizon. The pier has nothing to talk about. The boat does not reply. The rope is slacking off and refuses to comment. The sail refuses to shoot the breeze with Alexander. The beach seems to be clammed up. Alexander's voice gets tossed around by the waves and is drowned out. The splintery boards of the pier would not be pleasant to the touch. That boat is not going anywhere. The boat as a whole is in such sad shape that it's just not worth Alexander's time to try to fix that hole. Alexander wouldn't know what to do with the old bag of sand. The cargo bay is unlikely to hold anything of interest or have a very pleasant smell after months of dry docking. Alexander decides not to descend into the dark hole. The shore is too far off to reach. That would require some traveling abroad.
Yeah, what do you want?
The ferryman's face has been weathered by the sea air and by worry. He's definitely out of sorts. He glares at Alexander in a most suspicious and unfriendly manner. The ferryman doesn't seem interested in shaking hands with Alexander, and Alexander is not about to force his way past him.
Go away! The ferry's out of business! I said the ferry's out of business. What do you want to keep bothering me for?
Excuse me. My name is Alexander. The owner of the bookshop in the village told me you might be able to help me. I hear you used to run this ferry for the islands. I'd like to talk to you if you have a moment.
You say old Allie sent you? I can't see why. The ferry's not running, you know.
I understand. I'd just like to talk to you about the islands if you don't mind.
Well, I guess it'd be all right if Allie sent you. Well, don't just stand there. Come on inside. What is it you wanted to talk about, young man?
Alexander is sitting inside the ferry's cabin. The place displays the neatness of a seaman and the sparseness of a bachelor. There are few frills and comforts in the rough wooden environment, but the sunlight shines cheerily on the oaken beams, and the portholes admit a pleasant breeze. The ferryman is a disgruntled-looking man who is probably a lot younger than he appears. Despite his tired air, he watches Alexander patiently. A table is positioned in front of two plain wooden chairs. The table consists of a board placed over a small barrel. There's a rabbit's foot on the table. There's a rabbit's foot on the table. It seems the ferryman is counting on a little luck. Portholes provide fresh sea air and daylight to the boat's small cabin. Several oil lamps are strategically placed around the boat's cabin to eliminate the island's dark nights. A black pot-bellied stove in the corner provides warmth from the cool tropical nights and a means for cooking. The ferryman's bunk looks hard and uncomfortable. No wonder he can be so cranky. The portholes seem wholly unfamiliar with Alexander's vocabulary. The lamps chose not to illuminate Alexander. The rabbit's foot is long past even making a squeal.
I'm a visitor to these islands. I'd like to learn what I can about the area.
So you said outside. What is it you want to know?
Well, for one thing, why has the island's only ferry been dry docked?
It just ain't safe to sail these days. What with the islands feuding and all. Wazir Al-Hazred ordered the ferry closed till things settled down. Me, I don't think she'll ever see water again.
But why are the islands feuding?
You got me. Something about stolen property or some such thing. 'Tis a real shame. Things used to be so friendly.
Then this unrest is recent.
A few years is all, but it's been long enough.
Perhaps if the ferry were repaired.
This old thing? This ferry's been out of water so long she's no longer even seaworthy. Her boards have dry rot. She'd fall apart at the first taste of seawater.
But there must be some way to get off this island.
There's only one other way to travel that I know of. A magic map. The owner of the pawn shop can tell you more about that than I can, Alexander.
Tell me more about the ferry.
I remember when I used to ferry Queen Ilaria and Princess Cassima themselves. There was no thought of danger back then. They used to go visiting to care for the needy and to keep up the friendly relations between the islands. I remember their last trip. Things had started getting nasty by then, and when they came back aboard, I gathered that the Queen and the Princess had been received a bit coldly. Princess Cassima was such a pretty thing, and she was terribly upset. But who could be spreading these lies, she asked the Queen, but the Queen had no answer.
What do you do now that the ferry no longer operates?
Me? I'm out of a job. The job my ancestors have held for generations. I'm the only one trained to avoid the reef and the rocks. But that knowledge does me no good now.
Is there no other boat on the island? One that might be more seaworthy?
Boats don't last long on these shoals, as you may have found out if you got here by ship. You can be quite sure that this old ferry is, or was, the only craft on the island.
Tell me more about Princess Cassima.
Ah, such a beautiful child, and so pure of heart. Why, a contrary thought has never crossed her mind. Her mother was the same. The king and queen, they served the islands, not the other way around, always thinking about the people. Ah, they are sorely missed.
What else can you tell me about the land?
Let's see. The Isle of Wonder's a lovely spot. A bit crazy, mind you. Gotta have a good sense of humor to enjoy a tour there.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The Isle of the Beast is pretty, but unfortunately, you can't get very far onto the island.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The inhabitants of the Isle of the Sacred Mountain are the most gorgeous creatures you'll ever see. If you ever get to see them, that is.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The Castle of the Crown sure is a beauty. She's the finest palace ever built, I'll warrant.
What else can you tell me about the land?
Some say that the land of the Green Isles is near the edge of the world, and that the deadly currents are a result of a magnetism that sucks life from this world to the next. Of course, that's just silly talk.
Alexander isn't in the mood for a nap. Besides, he finds the thought of the old sea salt's bed linens rather uninviting. The fire in the stove is out, and it is too warm a day to light it. Alexander doesn't want to take the ferryman's lamps. He obviously has little enough to offer him comfort. If Alexander wants to leave, he should just use the door. The old sea salt is a little crusty around the edges. Alexander would rather keep his hands to himself.
I see you have a rabbit's foot. Has it brought you much luck?
As you can see, my luck's been out for some time now, despite that old charm. Why don't you take it with you? Perhaps giving the darn thing away will bring me good fortune at last.
Perhaps it will at that. Thank you.